Dear friends, it must have been an immense challenging time for Jesus, the day of his arrest. Although sharing a meal the previous night with his beloved disciples, he knew exactly what was awaiting him: arrest, trial, and ultimately crucifixion. What do you say as last words to loved ones when you or they are about to leave? Maybe to make us realize this more vividly, the scenes captured on film and photographs of the last cuddle at the train station before the train departs, taking the loved one away, has been imprinted on our minds. We certainly all had the experience of saying goodbye to our loved ones. Sometimes we know that this is going to be the last sight of them that we will ever see. That empty pain that you are left with in your chest, and that gutted feeling you've got in your stomach, we can't deny. It's hard for us to say goodbye. This moment in the garden when Jesus is being arrested is his moment of departure. He doesn't end there. He's also betrayed face to face by a friend. Worse circumstances can rarely be imagined. And I truly believe that Jesus felt this huge sense of loss on that fateful day when he was arrested. He's arrested in front of his disciples. We must remember that they shared a life together for nearly 2 decades. They shared hunger, cold, heat, the wrath of Pharisees, and lots more. But this moment comes in the garden. This is the moment that their paths, their earthly paths, will separate. It's because of Jesus' love for his Father's children that he came to be their and our salvation. The love of his Father for his children, God's love for you, is the reason why Jesus came. Extraordinary. His thoughts doesn't turn to himself, but his thoughts are with his disciples, his followers. He is thinking of them and their needs at this hour of his need. That's why he went and prayed for them, because he knew what was coming. He needs to think what their needs is going to be when he's put on trial and nailed to the cross and die in front of their eyes. He's equipping them, giving them the tools they will need not only to survive the onslaught and persecution by Jesus' enemies after he's gone, but they need to spread the good news, the news about his death. And yes, as they later realized, his resurrection. They need to cling on to his words, especially the words in the evening before his arrest, where he instituted the Last Supper, a way for them to remember him. And when they miss him, or they struggle with life's issues, or by spreading Jesus' ministry, they can have a celebration meal, a remembrance meal, to remind them and others what Jesus has said, what he meant for humankind, that he is their salvation. How are we able to let our loved ones go? To let our young children and young adults go to uni, get a job, and move out of the house, even to move to another country, or to be put in harm's way, to go to war. How do we cope with that? We put them in God's care. We place them in God's hands. God's care is so much more than the physical. It's about care mentally, spiritually, and the well-being of everyone. That is the reason why we can let our loved ones go. This is what Jesus did and continues to do until today. Before his arrest, he prayed to God for his disciples, that God will take care of them once he has left. And that's why God and Jesus stopped Peter from continuing to harm other people with his sword. He needs to drink the cup of suffering for everybody's salvation. It's noteworthy to realize what Jesus is doing at his time of arrest. He helps with 3 issues. Firstly, he affirms his identity. He is Jesus of Nazareth, the one who came to save the world. He reaffirms it twice. And his identity is quite clear, because even those people who came to arrest him fell to the ground, because they knew in whose presence they find themselves. Secondly, he thinks about his disciples. His thoughts are with them. You have me, let these others go, is his words to his persecutors. And thirdly, he solemnly affirms his purpose for coming to earth, the salvation of all. I will drink the cup of suffering, and Peter, you won't prevent me from doing that. When we celebrate Maundy Thursday 2020, we need to be clothed in dark colors. It is to remember what the disciples must have felt like at that moment of arrest and their leader's death. Their leader being taken prisoner, their future quite uncertain. although being taught about the kingdom of God by Jesus himself, they somehow had a different idea of what it actually meant. They looked towards the present, an earthly kingdom, whilst Jesus was focused and his view was to the eternal. They would have been frightened, even more so with the trial and execution of Jesus. And we can identify with the disciples, but we also can identify with what the high priests did. They ordered the killing of Jesus. That's why we clothe everything in dark colors on Maundy Thursday. And I encourage you to do this at this late stage. Jesus assures his disciples and us that he will go through with the salvation of mankind. And by doing that, he places the disciples and us into the arms of God forever. We celebrate Maundy Thursday and we mourn Good Friday, but we look towards Easter Sunday. May these words give you peace and love. Amen.